quaint little town named Brookville, Connecticut, was irrevocably changed on February 16, 1981, when Arne Cheyenne Johnson was arrested for the murder of his friend Alan Bono at 7:30 p.m. But what made this murder so unique that it garnered national attention was the defense that was proposed in court of not guilty for reason of demonic possession and the story behind that plea. Hello and welcome to my channel, Horror, History, and Haunting. I'm your host, Christina, and in this video I'm going to tell you a story based on my own personal research and let you be the judge on whether it is really fact or fiction. If dark mystery is your cup of tea and you're morbidly curious like myself, please hit that subscribe button so you won't miss anything I will be posting in the future. And if you want me to make more of a specific type of content, please hit that like button. It helps me a lot and I appreciate all the support. Today, most of the information I will be discussing is from the over 100 hours of video and audio recordings done by Ed and Larraine Warren as the events unfolded as depicted in the book The Devil in Connecticut, written by Gerald, Brittle, and Larraine Warren, and also the news reports and newspapers at the time about the case. This is part 2 of my 3-part video series on the subject of David Glatzel and Arne Johnson. If you have not watched part 1 about the possession of David Glatzel, I would definitely suggest you go back and watch that first one to be able to fully feel the impact and the context of this video in its entirety. The story was loosely the basis for the movie The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Him Do It, and the 1983 for television movie The Demon Murder Case. Arne Cheyenne Johnson was described as a very loving family man that was very mature for his age of 18 years. He quit school in the 10th grade to help provide for his sick single mother, his 2 young sisters, and a niece that the family was raising as their own. Debbie Glatzel met and ultimately fell in love with Arne while she was renting some rooms in Arne's mother's home for her and her 7-year-old son Jason. Debbie Glatzel is the oldest sibling of David Glatzel. David was possessed by an entity everyone called the Beast on the property that Debbie and Arne was going to rent, but after a terrifying move-in day, they never actually lived in the home. David was later possessed by 42 other helper demons in the Glatzel family home. A total of 43 demons tormented the boy almost daily. Arne would stay up all night with David when he was under possession to help take care of and fight the demons that plagued the boy, and also work during the day as a tree surgeon. On August 16th, Arne Cheyenne Johnson would make a devastating error. In a moment of sheer emotion at David Glatzel's continued and increasing torment by possession, and overwhelmed by the sheer exhaustion, in Brittle's words, with tears in his eyes, Arne leaned over and placed the silver cross given to him by Father Vergulac on David's forehead and said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, leave David's body. Come out of him and take me on. I'm stronger than David. I'll fight you. Leave David and come into me." The cross only left a momentary impression on David's forehead, but Arne's statement would endure. After August 20th's high mass that was done in the home by 4 priests in an attempt to alleviate David's possession, the family and Arne were only given 7 days peace before David's possession and the paranormal activity in the home came back with a vengeance. David would even pull a steak knife and try to stab his brother Alan in the stomach at the dinner table. Arne barely stopped him by grabbing his wrist. "I'll possess you for that," the entity screamed through David. The next night, Arne started convulsing at the dinner table. This is when the first possession happened to Arne. He growled through a sneer, and his eyes and face changed into one filled with animalistic hate. It only lasted less than a minute, but this would be the first of 6 episodes of possession Arne would experience. The last one being the unfortunate murder of his friend. During the deliverance of David, a strange occurrence happened. At one point, a wooden-handled folding knife appeared in David's pocket, and when it was noticed, the demon inside of David said, "The knife is mine and I know what to do with it." The knife then vanished when Ed Warren reached for it. Was this a prediction of what was to come for poor Arne? During one of these times, David was possessed. Right after the deliverance, he made a chilling prediction. "I have come for a soul. I will take what's mine. I will possess Arne and kill with a knife." The entity also added that Arne would be caught for the crime and that he would be found guilty. "I will ruin your life." During that episode, the entity rattled off a list of names, which later would turn out to be lawyers and court officials in the murder case against Arne. Arne had a public possession happen in church where he claimed to see the beast on the altar behind the priest mocking him, and then he had no memory until he was standing outside of the church. He had stood up during the service, cursing and yelling about wanting to leave, where then Debbie ushered him outside. This was the second episode of possession that Arne experienced. Unfortunately, it would not be over for Arne Cheyenne Johnson. His third possession lasted only minutes, with sneering and growling at Debbie. He also claimed to see the beast outside his window. The fourth one resulted in Arne punching through a solid wood trunk without any injury. The fifth and sixth possessions happened 10 minutes apart on the night that Alan Bono died. After things seemed to calm down with the Glatzels' home, Debbie took a job as a groomer at a kennel that was owned by Alan Bono. In the agreement, they would be given an apartment rent-free that was also owned by Bono over the kennel. Bono also lived above the kennel in a separate apartment. Arne was working as a tree surgeon by then, and Debbie and Arne started making plans and saving for a spring wedding. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until that fateful night of February 16, 1981. Debbie and Arne had picked up Arne's two sisters, Wanda and Janice, and his niece Mary the night before for a visit. Early in the morning, Arne got up to go to work, complained he felt ill with an upset stomach and a headache, and decided to stay home. He took some medication and then he went back to bed. Unable to sleep, he got back up again around 10 a.m., still feeling ill. Alan Bono insisted that everyone accompany him for lunch that day. During that lunch, Bono drank a couple of bottles of wine. Arne and Debbie only drank a glass each. On the way home, Bono purchased another bottle of wine that he started drinking in the office as Debbie worked and the three girls watched her. Arne, still feeling ill, lay back down for a nap. At 4 p.m., Arne got up, feeling a bit better, and Bono asked him to repair a speaker in the man's stereo that was down in the office in the kennel, which Arne promptly did. Bono, at this point, was completely drunk. The autopsy would discover a blood alcohol level of 3.33, which is 3 times the legal limit at the time for the state of Connecticut. Debbie and the girls ran out to get pizza and promptly returned around 6 p.m. They took the pizzas up to Bono's apartment just in case he would pass out. He could sleep it off there instead of at their place. He left the newly fixed stereo blaring downstairs, came upstairs, tried to turn on the TV, but when it didn't work, he got very loud, yelling and cursing at the television and shaking it violently. Then he punched a hole in the wall out of frustration. At that point, Debbie and Arne had decided to leave with the girls. The girls were still making their way down the stairs that led outside, and Debbie and Arne were at the bottom. Debbie looked at Arne, and immediately she knew that he had been possessed. Arne sneered and then growled and then attacked Debbie. She was on the ground in seconds, with Arne kicking her repeatedly in the head, chest, and stomach. Wanda reported that when he looked at her as she was coming down the stairs, pleading him to stop, that it wasn't Arne anymore, and that his teeth were bared like a wild animal's. Debbie scrambled to her feet now that Arne was distracted, and just like that, Arne returned to normal. Seeing Debbie crying in the yard, he said, "What's the matter, sweetheart?" in his normal, compassionate voice. Wanda and Janice started down the steps. When Mary started for the steps, Bono started yelling, and the man grabbed her by the arm as she was starting down the stairs. Arne tried to talk Bono into letting the girl go, to no avail, as they made their way down the stairs and then outside. Then Debbie pulled Bono's hair and he finally let go of the little girl. Mary and Janice ran to the car and ducked down in the back seat as Debbie instructed. Bono then tried to start a fight with Arne in front of the kennel, and they began to tussle with their fingers locked above their heads. Debbie tried to get in between the two men and break it up. That was when Arne changed and he was possessed for the final time. Arne and Bono let go of each other, and Arne began to back away. "There are two voices coming out of Arne," Debbie reported. One was a screeching voice, and the other a heavy animal growl. Wanda confirmed this also in Brittle's book. Bono continued to try and egg Arne on into a fight. Arne then roared like an animal, and then Bono fell to the ground. Arne walked around the building and then disappeared. At first, the girls thought Bono had just passed out due to his drinking at first. But when they turned him over on his back, they could see through his shirt he was bleeding. The girls pulled up his shirt and saw 2 stab wounds. Mary claimed that she received a message from the beast spoken in an unknown man's voice while she was cowering in the back seat of the car. "This is in punishment for Arne's challenges to me. If he challenges me ever again, I will kill him. I have killed before, and I will kill again." During the incident, both Debbie and Wanda stated that they never saw a knife during the incident. They started screaming for help, and then Mary and Wanda got out of the car and went over to where Bono was laying. It was at this point that Mary noticed Arne's wooden-handled folding woodsman's knife laying open on the ground about 10 feet away. The last time the knife was seen by anyone was earlier in the evening when it was on the table in the kennel office where Arne had used it to strip wires to fix Bono's stereo. Mary also stated that when she noticed the knife, it was glowing blue. When the paramedics arrived and started working on Bono, they noticed 4 stab wounds in the chest and abdomen and 1 in his shoulder. Not just 2, like the 2 girls observed just a short time earlier. Alan Bono was pronounced dead at 7:39 p.m. at the Danebury Hospital emergency room. Arne was found walking in a daze down Silver Mine Road, a few miles from the crime scene. His only words spoken were, "Please help me." When he was picked up by the police, he was reportedly incoherent and babbling, and when they placed him in a cell, he promptly laid down and fell asleep. "When I woke up, I didn't know where I was," Arne said. "My whole body was numb. I had no strength at all. I could hardly move my eyeballs." This was at 8 p.m. He had no memory from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. when he woke up in jail. He was no longer possessed and had no memory of the murder. All 4 girls, Debbie, Wanda, Janice, and Mary, were made to sign statements that the police officer had written on their behalf. There was no tape of their interview, and there was no second officer in the room at the time of questioning, and Mary was not present when her daughters or niece were interrogated by the police because she was sick at the time and at home. Arne was arraigned later that week, and bail was set to an unprecedented $125,000. The trial date was set for October of 1981. According to the Warrens, they and the priests that were involved in David Glatzel's case were ready and wanted to testify on Arne's behalf. The Diocese of Bridgeport had other plans. Not wanting bad publicity, refused to be contacted on Arne's behalf. All the priests that were involved in David's exorcisms were relocated to other churches, and they claimed that David and Arne were two separate cases, and that David's deliverance was technically not an exorcism, and referred all calls on the subject of David and Arne to a lawyer. Arne's defense put in a plea of not guilty by reason of demonic possession. The judge, Robert Callahan, promptly rejected this defense, stating that it was irrelative and unscientific. The defense at that point could only use the implications of self-defense in his case. The jury was not able to consider anything about demonic possession. According to his defense, Arne had no blood on him, no fingerprints were found on the knife, and all the girls stated that their witness statements were wrong. Because they didn't write them, the police officer did, with no second officer in the room to verify that the story written was true. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Johnson on November 24, 1981, of first-degree manslaughter. On December 18, 1981, he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. He was released after serving only 5 years of his sentence. He was able to finally get his high school diploma in prison. Debbie and Arne were married while he was in prison, and they had 2 kids. Unfortunately, Debbie died from cancer a short while after the movie The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Him Do It, was released, and as far as I could find, Arne is still alive. Debbie and Arne completely supported the book and the claims made in the book about David and Arne's possessions. Did David pass his possession on to his future brother-in-law, Arne, that caused him to kill? Or was it some sort of mass hysteria caused by what happened to David? As always, I would love to hear what you think, so make sure you put that in the comment below. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you like this content and would like to see more of it, please hit that like button. And if you don't want to miss any of my next videos, please consider subscribing. And as always, thank you all for your support. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye.